We're talking today with James Pittman of Saranac, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Now, Mr. Pittman, can you begin with some background on yourself, and to begin with, where and when were you born?
Well, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, back in, I can't think, in
1943, right?
43, yeah.
Okay. And what was your family doing at that time?
Well, my father had just moved up from Kentucky and brought my older brother and mom and started work at the tank plant in Warren.
Okay. And how old was he at the time, do you think?
He was early 40s.
Okay. So between the age, the family, and the defense industry job, he didn't have to go into the Army?
No,
Okay.
he was exempt because he was a family man and too old.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then, now, did you grow up in Detroit, or did you move around?
We moved to Hazel Park in 43,
Okay.
right after I was born.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Detroit, but then we moved to Hazel Park, where my dad bought a house, and that's where I lived for the rest of my life down there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, did you go to high school there?
Yes,
Okay.
graduate,
And then, what year did you finish high school?
61.
All right. And then, once you graduated high school, what did you do?
I went to work with a carbide tool factory in shipping receiving, and from there I progressed the different job titles within the company. When I went in service, I was a journeyman machinist, and we made the parts. The customer would send us the prints, and we would make the parts according to the prints.
All right. Now, when you entered the service, did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted.
Okay. And when did you get your draft notice?
Roughly about 4 to 5 months after I got a divorce.
Oh, okay.
So there was a catch in there.
All right. Now, a lot of people these days are not even familiar with how the draft worked. Normally, you register for the draft when you're 18, which would be 1961, and then you're eligible. But then, did you have a deferment then?
I did have a deferment with child and marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that ended, I had a month's notice, and my draft number changed from 4A to 1A.
Mm-hmm.
And I was number 1 on their list.
All right.
And so I made it from, let's see, August, September, October, through to March. And then my draft number finally came up.
All right. So you go in March of what year?
67.
Okay, March of 67. All right. Now, did you do another physical at that time, or?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And where did you go for the physical?
Detroit Induction Center.
Okay. Now, when you went there, did you notice anybody trying to scan the system, or
Oh, big time.
what kinds of things did they do?
Colored shorts, underwear, real vibrant colored underwear, and wanting to make it look queer or whatever. It was just a joke.
And how did the recruiters deal with those people?
Just get back in line.
Yeah. Didn't care at that point.
No, doctors were going to weed them out anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right. Now, as far as you could tell, were they just kind of taking anybody, or were the doctors actually looking for real problems?
oh, they were looking for real problems. Yeah, because they had me down. See what was the? I think I might have had a little bit of pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
Because that backed me up a couple days because I had to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to check my lungs out pretty good.
Right. Okay. So at least to some extent, the doctors were actually doing their job.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, then, where do they send you for basic training?
Fort Knox, Kentucky,
Okay. And how did they get you down to Fort Knox?
by train.
Okay. And then once you arrive at Fort Knox, what kind of reception do you get?
Jump here, jump there, and you keep jumping. Yeah, fast, real fast. Get your gear and get registered and, you know, get training.
Okay. Did they spend any time doing tests or things before you really started training, or did you go into training right away?
No, they did a lot of tests. You know, mental,
Mm-hmm.
physical, their theories on, you know, what kind of a soldier you were gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a lot of different tests,
All right. Now, were you older than most of the guys you came in with?
very much. I was 24 when I got drafted, and the rest of the guys that I was in with were like 18, 19.
Yeah. The draftee's probably 19. If they enlisted, maybe 18. But yeah. Okay. So there, now, how easy or hard was it for you to adjust to life in the Army?
Getting used to their physical routine was the hardest. Other than that, I adapted really well, but I did get sick a couple times running.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, once I got my second wind, I'd leave them in the dirt.
Right. Okay. How did the drill sergeants treat you?
They call me old man. Old men.
Mhm.
There was 2 or 3 of us that were about the same age and divorced, and they say, "Old man, get up here," you know, and they were just making a joke out of it. So, but we knew who they were talking about.
Did they give you any particular responsibilities because you were older, or they just treat you like everybody else?
Well, they thought we could train better, you know, train the new recruits better.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to have nothing to do with that. I just kind of wanted to stay by myself, you know, go through training together. I seen what it was like, and I was no doubt in my mind I was just going to skate right through it.
Okay.
So,
All right. Now, what does the training actually consist of? What do they make you do in boot camp?
physical, mental, and progress to a certain stage where they can count on you for whatever they want.
Okay.
So, you know, once you hit that point, they just kind of left you alone.
So just training you to follow orders automatically.
Right.
Okay. Now, were there guys who tried to push back?
Oh, yeah.
What happened with them?
Well, they got pushed under. I mean, the drill sergeants, they can pick them out like flies. And, well, the old thumbs come down on them hard. And then the rest of us would react accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they were jerk-offs or, you know, we'd teach them as much as we could. Couldn't teach them, we'd give them a thumping.
Now, would the sergeants punish a whole unit if somebody messed up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when we would take over.
Right. You keep them in line that way. All right. Were most of the men you were training with, do you think they were draftees?
Half were National Guard.
Okay. Now, did they treat the National Guard guys different from the rest of you?
Yeah, because of the amount of time that they had to take the training. They were in for 6 months. We were in for 2 years. So they would go back home and come back at a later date for the rest of their training.
Mm-hmm.
But they would have half of it or part of it already in.
Right. But in terms of how they handled people or assigned KP or other stuff like that, would the sergeants pick on the guardsmen or not?
No, it was pretty even.
Okay.
Yeah, I got details sometimes when I didn't think I should have. And then they'd pick on National Guard sometime, and I'd say, yeah. So, you know, it was back and forth, but I couldn't see any favoritism.
Okay. Were there tensions between the National Guard guys and the draftees?
Very much.
Okay, and how would that play out?
Fight.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a bunch of National Guard from Chicago. Most of them were black, and they thought they were a lot better than we were. Well, some were, some weren't. So it just came down to fight.
All right. And then how do the sergeants deal with that?
They get you separate and threaten you. But, you know, we had our own code of justice, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And after a couple of days, we worked it out.
Okay. Now, how long did the basic training last?
8 weeks.
Okay. And what did they do with you after 8 weeks?
Well, we were shipped right down to Louisiana, Fort Polk.
All right. And what kind of training did you get there?
Advanced infantry training.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, can you describe what the infantry training at Fort Polk was like in the middle of 1967? What kinds of things did you do?
Everything. Swamps, jungle. It was worse than Vietnam. I'll tell you the truth, it was worse.
Okay. So I guess you would have been there in the summer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Middle of the year. Okay. So summer in Louisiana swamps might get you
Oh,
similar conditions.
Snakes. Rattlesnakes. And I hated snakes. And a couple of my buddies got bit right on the ass, you know, with rattlesnakes,
Mm-hmm.
baby rattlers. So that kind of got me a little worried about. Oh, one other thing I'll tell you, I fell asleep standing up, and it just shot the hell right out of me. That I could go to sleep standing up. Well, I did.
Were you on guard duty or something, or?
No, I just got done with finishing a meal.
Mm-hmm.
It was lunchtime, and I was just tired as anything. I leaned up against the barracks,
Mm-hmm.
sound asleep.
All right.
Surprise, surprise.
Now, did they make any effort to kind of teach you about Vietnam itself?
Oh yeah, every place we went to, where they had the cadre from Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
and they taught us very well.
Okay. And what kinds of things were they teaching you?
Booby traps, punji stakes, bombs, booby traps, things that'd kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Simple.
And did you get any training about sort of the Vietnamese culture or society or how to handle civilians?
They tried to do a little bit of language treatment, but it was so hard I couldn't pick it up.
Yeah. Westerners have a tough time with Vietnamese.
My tongue wouldn't tie that good.
Right. Okay. But on some level, you didn't really know what to expect from the people when you went over there.
Not really. You know, we knew, this is something else that still gets me. We couldn't shoot anybody until they shot at us. I thought that was very, very unfair. You know, but after a while you get used to it and you compensate for it.
Mm-hmm. All right. And so how long does the AIT last?
AIT was 10 weeks.
Okay. Okay, because the standard was 8 weeks, but things vary from time to time depending on when you're there.
Well, they covered everything from compass training to swamp training to search in a village,
Mhm.
how to do this, how to do that, the correct way to do it, you know.
So do they have a mock village set up for you?
Yeah, everywhere we went.
Okay. And did they have people there playing civilians, or did you?
Oh yeah, that was the cadre from Vietnam.
All right. Okay, so they were doing what they could
Oh yeah, yeah.
to get you ready.
It was good training.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. And when I got to Vietnam, it just made me realize that was the best training in the world. It showed us what was gonna happen before it happened.
All right. Now, were you just a rifleman, or did you have some other MOS?
No, combat infantry rifleman.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
Now-
I'll take that back. I was a mortar crewman.
Mhm.
Me and another guy, John Martinek, the one that passed away yesterday, we got into the mortars with our scores,
Mhm.
and when we first got over there, that's what we were given as our mortar crewman license.
Okay. Now, while you were still back in the States, did they offer you the opportunity to become an NCO? Were you-
NCO?
Sergeant, were you
Oh,
offered?
yeah.
Okay. So you were offered leadership
Officer.
training?
Yeah.
Okay. But you didn't take that?
Oh, that was another year.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
another year, you'd have to enlist for another year,
Mhm.
and I wanna get in and get out.
All right. Okay. So once you complete AIT, do you get to go home, or what happens next?
Vietnam,
Okay. So there's no leave home.
no,
It's straight to Vietnam.
that damn squirrel.
All right.
I had a 20-day leave,
Okay.
and right out to Oakland, California, jump on the Big Bird, and I was in Vietnam that next day.
Okay. Now at Oakland at the depot there, did you have to wait long, or did they get you out right away?
Let me think. They got us out the next day,
Okay. So it was a pretty quick turnaround for you.
yeah,
Because some guys got stuck there longer. Okay. And then what kind of airplane were you flying on?
commercial Air Japan. We had the stewardesses on board, and they didn't serve any meals or anything, but we had soda pop and stuff like that to eat. So,
And was it actually a Japanese crew, or
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then you fly out of San Francisco. Where do you stop along the way?
We stopped in Alaska somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was across the pond to Japan,
Mm-hmm.
Okinawa, Japan, Okinawa. And I remember seeing the mountain. We flew into Japan.
Okay, so Mount Fuji near Tokyo? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and to Okinawa. And then where did you land in Vietnam?
Long Binh.
Okay. And what time of day did you get to Vietnam? Or was it day or night?
It was morning.
Okay.
We had a plane trouble in Okinawa. We had a layover overnight in Okinawa, and through confusion, we got in to Vietnam the very next morning. So, it was just whatever kind of plane trouble they had.
Right. Yeah, because normally from Japan they wouldn't be stopping in Okinawa. But okay. So you land out at Long Binh, big base outside of Saigon. What was your first impression of Vietnam when you got there?
Hot and stinky. Very hot and very stinky.
Okay. And then was anything happening when you landed, or was it quiet?
Oh, it was quiet.
Okay. And so when you get off the plane, what happens to you?
Well, you went to a reception center, and then you were assigned cleanup. Yeah, kind of cleanup duties.
Mm-hmm.
And my job was loading Lone Star beer, 8 by 8 by 8 pallets. And I mean, I was sick of that beer. Because you'd have to break a case once in a while to
Mm-hmm.
make it worthwhile.
Right. All right. And about how long do you think you spent doing that?
3 days.
Okay. Now then you get your assignment.
Not yet.
Okay. What happens then?
They give you a bunch of choices. What do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
They had a sapper, which was demolition. What was the other one? Well, my score with the rifles was both experts,
Mhm.
M16, M14. I'm trying to think of what, not,
Well, there were snipers and...
Sniper, that's the one I
Okay.
would think of, yeah. But after seeing what they went through, I declined that.
All
So
right.
I just said, just give me my regular mortar training duty and I'll be good to go.
Okay. And then what unit do they assign you to?
Well, I was with the 199th Light Infantry Charlie Company, and at that time, we had our mortars with us,
Mm-hmm.
and I was fire direction control, and after a month or so of that, they took our mortars away and made us a combat infantry outfit,
Okay. Now, what size mortars did you have?
81.
81s. Okay. Now, so where was the 199th operating when you joined it?
Long Binh.
Okay, they were at Long Binh at that point. Okay. And what kind of, so this is kind of, how far into 1967 have we got? Is this in the fall now, or when did you get to Vietnam?
We got there in March.
I thought you,
Oh, excuse me. We went to AIT.
Yeah.
And in the first part of 67, and we got into Vietnam in August.
that's about right. Okay.
August of 67.
Okay. And then what kinds of missions was your company carrying out at that point?
Search and destroy.
Okay. And how close, were you staying close to Long Binh, or were you further out?
Wherever a chopper or truck would take us, that's where we would wind up.
Now, when you first joined, how did they get you out to your company? You just get in a truck?
Trucks.
Okay.
Trucks or helicopters.
Okay. And then once you first joined the company, did anybody show you around or give you any instructions?
Yeah, a couple lieutenants. You know, they'd take us different, they were in the process of building barracks. And they, you know, show you here, show you there. And, you know, when you come back in from the field,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be staying in this barrack.
Okay.
And so it was kind of a regimental deal where you were positioned here, positioned there, depending on what kind of job you had.
Right. Okay. Now, was the company in the field when you joined it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it was a big company, very large company, in fact.
Do you have a sense of how many men were in it when you joined it?
Oh, man, six or seven separate companies.
That would be, a battalion is made up of companies, and the company has platoons. Did it have 6 or 7? Did the company have 6 or 7 platoons, or did the battalion have?
Well, we were called the brigade.
Yeah, the brigade was the larger unit,
Right.
and then there's battalions in the brigade.
Broke it down.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
But
there was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alpha, Delta, Charlie. There was 4 different companies.
Yes. Okay, there's 4 companies in the battalion. And then the battalion in turn, then your company then, how many platoons do they have?
There was 4.
Okay. All right. And when you go out and you join the unit in the field, were the mortars in a kind of a separate platoon, or
Yes.
just okay?
Yeah. We stayed back with the captain of Charlie Company. I was in Charlie Company,
Mm-hmm.
and we stayed back with him. And you know, he had the direction control and different things. Let's see how that worked. You know, and we'd have direction control from him, or
Mhm.
from a separate direction control, and that's how we got our information from the different companies.
Right. Now, were you on a fire base or in a perimeter, or
We built our own bases.
okay?
You know, sandbags, and yeah, we built our own. So wherever we'd set up, they'd fire ammo out to us. We carried our tubes with us, and they'd fly our ammo out. We'd set up the tubes.
Okay. Now you carry your tubes with you. Were you humping those, or were you riding in helicopters?
Often
How much does a mortar tube weigh?
about 90 pounds.
Okay, and then it's got a base plate.
Oh yeah, that's separate.
And how much does that weigh?
About 90 pounds. That base plate's real heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going any distance, would that normally be by helicopter, though, or would you carry that?
Well, it depends. You know, a lot of the time we throw it on a helicopter, a lot of times we throw it in the back of the truck.
Okay.
So, just depend on our mode of transportation.
Okay. And so you say, now, how long did you spend with the mortars?
Roughly 2 months.
Okay. Now, during that time, those first 2 months when you're out there, how much activity was there? How much enemy action was there?
Very little.
Okay.
Very little.
And what kind of country were you operating in?
Rice paddies.
And was it dry or wet at that time?
Oh, real wet.
Okay. So how do you get around in the rice paddies?
Hey, you slop the mud. Yeah, you just slop the mud as best you can.
Now, did the paddies have dikes in them?
Oh, danger dikes.
Okay, so you didn't walk on the dikes.
No, they taught you real quick. You blow yourself up walking that dike. Or a sniper get you or something like that. So,
Okay. Now, were the enemy in the area mostly VC as far as you know?
Strictly all BC.
Okay. And were there a lot of civilians around?
Oh, everywhere. Everywhere. You know, we would go to a village and the rifle companies would search and destroy any kind of enemy activity in the villages. We would pull back a few miles with our tubes and just give them all kinds of fire support they wanted. So that was our job and then the rifle company's job.
Okay. And did you have to do that a lot, or was it rare?
Every third day.
About every third day. Okay.
Yeah, we'd move our operation. We'd stay in one place about 3 days and then move to another village. And then again, we would set up our mortars accordingly.
Okay. But if the enemy weren't shooting at you, you probably weren't using the mortars? Or would you use the mortars for H&I?
Rifle companies would go in and search and destroy.
Right.
We didn't have to worry about them shooting at us.
Right. But the mortar companies, but the infantry companies, they're calling on you for fire support, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they would normally do that when they encountered resistance.
Right.
Okay. So there were some enemy out there someplace
Oh yeah.
to give you something to shoot at.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you sometimes do H&I fire? Would you go shoot an area just?
Harassment and interdiction. Lots of it. You know, we pick out a special coordinates and they'd holler over the radio about H&I, and usually it would be after a fire mission. They gave us coordinates for H&I mission. And we just set the coordinates up and lob about 20, 30 rounds into it. And I've seen where we've hit before, and it's nothing. It's a vacant field. You know, that kind of disheartened me a little bit, but you know, we're getting our job done.
All right. And so basically, when your unit is operating, you're kind of in the company's perimeter pretty much, wherever their base is.
Right.
And then the mortars are set up there, and there's some infantry around, but most of them are out in the field patrolling.
Right.
Okay. Would the captain go out with the units, or does he stay in the camp?
Our captain stayed with us,
Okay.
but their captains,
Oh, you had
the rifle company's
Right.
captains stayed with them.
okay. So you had a captain, so there was kind of a support company that had the mortars in it that you were with?
Right.
Okay. All right, but the line company commanders were out there.
Yeah.
All right. And now, was the battalion operating kind of as a battalion-sized unit with the individual rifle companies maneuvering
Oh yeah.
close to each other? Okay.
Different areas. I thought it kind of strange that they would go ahead and pull like Charlie Company instead of Delta Company. They would switch the companies around where we were all doing the same thing, but it's just different spots. So they gave us all different types of, same training, but different sections, different types of training.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have any contact with civilians beyond just having them be in the villages and fields? Would any of them come into the camp for anything, or?
Not allowed.
Yeah.
Definitely not allowed. I got my tail chewed real bad one time, letting little kids in.
Mm-hmm.
They had enough ambition, they could fill sandbags better than I could. And boy, did I get chewed. Get them rotten kids out of here before they blow you right up. So I learned quick.
Okay. Did they tell you basically not to trust anybody?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, you're taking your life in your hand right then. Or you're giving your life to that person.
Okay. Now, you stayed with the mortars for just a couple of months. Why did you switch out?
Because the enemy activity increased. I found out later because the Dong Nai enemy regiment was on the Dong Nai River, and it was really a hot spot for us. In fact, we got close to it one time and we lost about 8 guys during the infiltration of it. And this is a week after I got shot.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now,
they knew they were there,
mm-hmm.
but they were just so strong that they couldn't do much with them.
Okay. How were the enemy equipped? What kind of weapons did they have?
They had all ours. I got shot with a Thompson submachine gun. There were 3 of them, 3 Thompson submachine guns in the patrol that I ambushed. Every one of them malfunctioned and got the guy killed.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them, 3 Thompson submachine guns.
Okay. Well, they had a lot of World War II surplus American stuff.
Oh, they would raid the ARVN camps.
Yeah, we gave to the Arvins, yeah.
Yeah. And man, it was just so easy to go in and just say boo, and the ARVN to give them their weapons and anything else.
Okay. Now, how much time did you actually spend as an infantryman before you got hit?
4 months.
Okay. Now, what was it like? Do you remember kind of going out on regular foot patrol the first time? Was that a different experience?
Scary.
Okay.
Scary, scary, scary. Because the new guys got point. Yeah, and I knew what point was. And you were the first one to get killed. And that scared the hell right out of me.
Did they put you on point the very first day?
Well, basically.
Okay.
It was within that first week.
Within the first week, but
Yeah.
maybe the very first patrol, you're not out there yet,
Well, you gotta know what to look for.
right?
And there was some hard-nosed guys in there. You let that young son of a bitch out there, let him learn. I ain't going out.
Did anyone try to teach you what to look for?
Oh yeah, we had some good sergeants. And a couple lieutenants that knew what they were talking about. Most of the lieutenants didn't know their ass from their elbow, but the sergeants did.
Right. Now, were the sergeants, any of them people either with their previous tour or lifers in the Army, or were they just new guys too?
Most of them came from Germany,
Okay.
now that I think about it. Yeah, they came from Germany, where they knew they were going to Vietnam but didn't know when.
Yeah, because they were drawing personnel from anywhere they could get it as they built up in Vietnam.
Right.
So they might not have had much Vietnam experience either.
Well, they had been in service.
Yes.
And that's what I looked at, and stripes on their shoulder and so forth. So I trusted them.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, how quickly did you kind of learn the ropes of being an infantryman?
About 2 months.
Okay. What kinds of things did you have to learn?
Booby traps. Big time booby traps. Going into a village, don't knock on the door. throw something through it. You know, and it's just, you were asking to get shot or blown up, you know, if you didn't do it the right way. So, yeah, I learned quick about throwing something through a door. And don't knock.
Well, what would make you decide to go through a door in the first place?
Activity inside.
Okay. So you didn't just walk into some place and then randomly barge in. There was some reason to do it?
Yeah, you get shot.
Well, yeah, but it was the... Now, did you have any Vietnamese soldiers or interpreters with you when you did this?
After the third month I was there, we had a battalion of South Vietnamese soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And they taught us a lot, you know, what to do on a village, and I picked up a little bit of the language, and so, you know, it was just a new experience to learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, I'm just gonna say, they were afraid. After talking with them, they were in their army until this whole war was over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was no leave for them, no nothing. So, that made a difference to them. You know, and that made them scared, really scared.
Did they have any understanding of what they were supposed to be fighting for, or they were just there?
Just there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something I just still couldn't understand. You know, they had probably the best reason in the world to hate the North Vietnamese, but they were afraid, really afraid.
And what were they afraid of?
Death,
Okay, but just death in combat, or
torture.
being captured, or
Yeah.
It was. Now, how did the South Vietnamese soldiers deal with the villagers?
No mercy. No mercy at all. You know, when they spoke, you better jump, or they kill you. I seen a couple on a motorcycle, both a young gal and a guy. They ran through a checkpoint. They killed them. I was standing right next to them. Me to you. Zapped them good. Killed them.
Okay. Now, you said that you switched to the infantry because enemy activity was picking up, and this was still this Viet Cong unit, this Dong Nai regiment, or
It was because of them.
yeah.
Yeah. We were getting a lot more enemy activity, and they would jump us around in different areas. I can remember, let me think of it. Darn. Well, anyhow, they were having a lot of enemy activity. And they would hide, couldn't find them. And they were digging their holes and burying themselves. Tunnel rats.
Mm-hmm.
And as the infantry outfit, we'd go in and we could find them. We could never get them out. You know, and that was just frustrating, very frustrating to me. You know, blow it up or do something with it, but no, you ain't gonna do that. You ain't gonna get them out. So they just started bombing and bombing and bombing.
Okay. Now, the areas that would have a lot of tunnels and holes, this probably wasn't rice paddy areas so much, or did they have those?
Didn't make any difference.
Oh, okay.
They go right underneath them.
Mm-hmm.
Rivers. They go right underneath the rivers. Oh, it was ingenious. I mean, ingenious. They have how smart they were. Very, very smart.
Okay. Now, was all of your time spent on the field, or would you get time in base camps or anything like that?
They would put on a party at base camp. Well, I went to 2 of them, and they were an all-girl band. They were, let's see, Japanese, Yeah, Japanese, they couldn't hardly understand them. But the music they played, you could understand that. And then, water skiing on the Saigon River, you know, just activities that you wouldn't do every day. And there was a 3-day R&R for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 2 of them. And then after that, right back in the field.
All right. And in some areas of Vietnam, in some periods of the conflict, there would be situations where there would be some of the soldiers fraternizing with civilians, whether it was with prostitutes or drug dealers or things like that. Some of them would come right up to the soldiers in the field. Did that happen with your unit, or were you not aware of that?
Oh, they tried. Some guy would have a prostitute on a motorcycle, and, you know, trying to hustle her
Mm-hmm.
with us guys. And, you're out in the field, you ain't doing nothing. In fact, one guy did. He gave. Wasn't my outfit, it was another outfit. He gave the whole outfit to clap. And that captain was hot.
Mm-hmm.
Man, oh man, was he hot. How the hell did this happen in the field?
Yep. That could happen. All right. Now, were there people using drugs, or was that not something you saw?
Big time.
Okay. And what were they using?
Nickel bags, marijuana.
Okay, marijuana. Right. Now, did the unit have any kind of its own rules for that? I mean, would you smoke it in the field or just in a camp, or?
Most of the guys that would come in from the search and destroy mission, this buddy of mine, John, we were pulling perimeter guard for him one night. And, you know, we knew they were beat. They'd been gone for 3 days. And they pulled a big poncho liner over the top of them, started lighting up. And all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. Well, we pulled the poncho liner off. The guns started shooting. And we were pulling perimeter guard for them. Man, John and I hit that water with our nose about that far above the water, and didn't get out of the water for 2 hours. And John looked at me and says, "I'm not getting killed over this shit." So we made a complaint to the captain about, you know, our lives gonna be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of curtailed it for a while, when it came right back.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we got our satisfaction out of it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, to what extent did that actually interfere with the effectiveness of the unit?
Big time. Yeah, they wanted their pot smoking freedom. Well, they weren't gonna get it.
Mm-hmm. Now, what proportion of the guys do you think were doing that in a way that was causing trouble?
Maybe half.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe half.
And then, I mean, does that, I mean, aside from this one incident that you just mentioned, I mean, were there places where you were in the field and guys didn't perform as well as they should have, or?
Well, there I didn't know, because we were kept back as a security
Okay.
force. And anytime the rifle companies would go out, they would go with their own individual rifle company.
Right.
And we would sit back with our mortars and fire support for them.
Right. But you became a regular rifleman at some point,
Yeah,
though.
this is after a couple months.
Okay. But then after that, aren't you out in the field with the rest of the riflemen?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, and I didn't do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I seen it. I didn't like it. I could bitch a little bit about
Mhm.
it, and I did. And, you know, I did what I could.
Right. Okay. Now, within your company, how would you characterize the unit's morale while you were there?
Depending on the activities.
Okay.
The more activity, the straighter your company got.
Okay.
You know, you were on your toes more. You're ready for action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you could, for the most part, count on the other guys when you were actually out in the field.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, when I got shot, every man hadn't done his part, I wouldn't be here.
Mhm. Now, did you get into any large-scale firefights before the one where you got shot?
No.
So what kind of enemy resistance would you encounter when you were out there?
Usually it was patrols, their patrols, search and destroy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were lucky enough to catch them off guard, you were, had the upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
If they were lucky enough to catch you off guard, you were dead.
Okay. Now, in that space of about 4 months when you're in the field with a line unit, how many casualties do you think you took?
Maybe a dozen.
Okay. And about out of how many in a company at that point?
Say that again.
About how many men were in your company, do you think? In C
Oh,
company?
We were always getting replacements.
Okay.
I don't know.
So would you have over 100, or would you have 70 or 50?
Well,
Or?
the company used to stay about the same, 40, 50
Okay.
in a company.
Okay, so that's not very big compared to
No,
paper
yeah.
strength. Yeah.
Charlie Company, I
Mhm.
was out with Charlie Company all the time. And that was it.
Yeah.
Just 40, 50 guys.
Okay. And then would that operate in 2 platoons normally, or 3? Because with 50
Well,
men.
3, we
Okay.
had 3 squad leaders,
Okay.
yeah,
So basically, the company is kind of like a big platoon with 3 squads in it.
right.
Okay. All right. Now, before the incident, like a couple other kinds of things. How much contact did you have with home while you were over there?
The more letters, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my family, there were 6 of us kids, and the more letters I could get, the more I missed home.
Mhm.
I missed home bad.
And did you have them send you anything out there
Oh,
aside from letters?
ditty bags, lots of different candies and treats. And well, this company I worked for was a carbide tool factory, and they made me up a knife sharpener, a machete sharpener,
Mm-hmm.
a bayonet sharpener, and they were split carbide tools. Just draw them through it.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I was the most popular guy who was sharpening machetes and bayonets, and they'd come right to me with everything.
All right. And are there particular incidents or things that you remember about the time that you spent out there in the field before you got hit?
Every day was like a new day. We had the same thing to do every day, but it seemed like the more I was there, the more I got used to it. It wasn't repetitious per se, but I was doing the same thing, back and forth.
And did you assume you were going to make it through, or did you not worry about that?
I never worried about it.
Okay. And tell me about the day when you got hit. What were you doing then, and what happened?
Well, I'm going to let you read it, and then if you got any questions, that's a yellow notebook paper.
Right, that's a written account.
First section.
Right, saw that in here. Okay, well, I can basically read it aloud. All right, so this is your account of what happened on November 29, 1967. All right, you're again, the C Company, 199th Light Infantry Brigade, 4th Platoon, and this would be 4th Battalion of the 12th Infantry Regiment. Okay, evening 11/28/67, told by Squad Leader Sergeant Lewis Womack to be ready for a sweep the next morning. Okay, so the sergeant's telling you get ready for a sweep. Okay, it was a typical morning liftoff. So you're going on helicopters, dropped off later near the banks of the Dong Nai River, told to set up perimeter. Let's see, ground for command post group, and you've got a drawing in here. And then after a few hours, no contact, point man came to my position telling me that Charlie, that is the VC, was coming down the trail. Looking up out of the elephant grass, we see 10 to 12 VC trotting down the trail. Surprised and confused as to what to do, number 3 man on guard is told to return to CP group and inform them of the coming contact. Looking up above the grass, the VC are getting much too close by now. Point man and myself decide to throw hand grenades at their point men at a distance of approximately 20 yards. We throw the grenades. After exploding, we jumped up on full auto, so you've got your M16s on firing on automatic, and they fire 8 to 10 magazines of M16 fire, and all the VC had dispersed. Then we took return fire. We hit the dirt and started low crawling back to find our CP. Okay, and CP group. Okay, getting back to the CP group, we tell Captain McFarland of the encounter. All of the, was it fourth squad is told to take a break, and after a little chow and coffee, we're going to meet up with another rifle company to continue the search and destroy mission. Leaving the original CP location, we follow the bank of the river, and after a short distance, my platoon sergeant spotted an ammunition belt lying on the river edge. I was told to retrieve the ammo belt, and after doing so, crawling up the steep bank, I noticed a hole in the tangled roots and vines that clung to the steep bank. I threw the ammo belt to the sergeant and told him of the hole that traveled along the river, and he told me to follow it. In doing so, after a few meters, I find a grease gun, so a submachine gun, and that's an old American submachine gun. Yeah, the grease gun is like a World War II,
Right.
yeah, kind of lightweight one, and a .30 caliber U.S. carbine, which I throw to my fellow soldiers who were following me at the top of the riverbank. After a few more meters of crawling, I spot another ammo belt at the river edge. I proceed down to the ammo belt when I notice a VC crouched just ahead of me. I pull up my M16, and then, let's see, is this holler, is this
Light day.
Light day, and what does that mean?
Come here.
Come here. I open fire on the VC, and he rolls down to the water's edge, revealing another VC. I repeat my order. This VC puts his hands up. I inform him to come to me, which he does. I pass one of my fellow soldiers on top of the riverbank, and then proceed down to the killed VC at the water's edge. I glance at the area, proceed to search the dead VC. After the search, I noticed a command and control helicopter above. I gave the dead signal to it, and then I caught a glimpse of black in the brush above me. And at that second, I was shot by another VC that was above and ahead of the other VC, coming in and out of consciousness. I remember very little until waking up in the medevac hospital, thanking my fellow soldiers for still being alive. Okay? Now, I think actually that does a pretty good job of telling what happens. You're patrolling out there, but a couple of things to notice. Again, one of them was the weapons you found were American ones. Okay, now you mentioned that there were, you found a grease gun, which was a small lightweight submachine gun.
Right.
You mentioned also that some of them had Tommy guns?
Thompson
Submachine guns. Right.
3 of them.
Right. And now did other men in the unit kill those, or were those among the other people you killed on the way
No.
through?
They all had their turn.
Mm-hmm.
They started firing at the medic and me.
Mm-hmm.
The medic was on top of me, trying to give me aid,
Mm-hmm.
stop my bleeding. He opened up with his Thompson on the medic and I. He jammed. One of my buddies walking up the river shot and killed him. Then Colonel Schroeder, he was in that light helicopter,
Mhm.
and I gave him the kill sign on the VC that I had shot, and this was just a second before I got opened up on
Mhm.
again, and that's when I got shot.
Right.
And the colonel said, yeah, I watched you stiffen right up, and he said, I was on the radio right now, getting you a medevac in here. So, well, the third Thompson was the one that was keeping him, the colonel, back away from where we were at. And his gun jammed, shooting at the colonel in the helicopter. So I think he opened up with his .45 pistol and killed that one.
Well, that's pretty good shooting then.
Oh, from the helicopter, you bet. Yeah, so 3 of those Thompsons failed. That's what got me is, they're not very good rifles.
Well, they had to, even in World War II, you had to keep them clean, you had to maintain them properly, and have good ammunition, and Lord knows what they had.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so then, did they tell you sort of then what happened to you? You get hit, the medic gets down to you. Did they have to carry you up out of the riverbank, or?
Here we go again. Everybody had their part.
Mm-hmm.
And my squad leader, his name was Mobile, Alabama, 6'6", tall, lanky, black guy, hand carried me out into the river and hand hoisted me up into the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
Their skids were right in the water, and the rotor blades were touching the outside weeds.
Yeah.
And if each one of them guys hadn't done their job, I wouldn't have been here.
Yeah. So I guess by then, once you'd taken care of the guys with the submachine guns, there wasn't anyone else to shoot at the helicopter.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. And now, do you know where the hospital was that they took you to?
It was in Saigon.
Okay.
24th medevac, or either that or the 9th medevac.
Okay.
One of the two, I forget now which.
All right. I
But
think
know
those.
I went to both.
Okay, because those are, I think, like a Long Binh or Benoit, or one of those places.
No, this was in Saigon.
Actually, in the city of Saigon,
Yeah.
or on Ton Son Nhut, or
Well, it could have been Thompson Newt, I don't know either.
yeah, because mostly the Americans didn't have a lot of facilities right in the city, but we were right around the outside of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So probably-
Okay, but big hospitals there, and then basically, how badly were you hurt?
Well, I took one round in my lower spine. The next round went through my shoulder, my fatty part of my arm,
Mm-hmm.
hit a rib bone, and then directed right down to my kidney. So they pulled it out of my kidney, the bullet.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the doc said, he said, you were bleeding for so many spots, I couldn't figure out which one was worse. And then that son of a gun opened up on us. And he said, man, I was scared. I just put my whole body over yours and keep you from getting it again.
So the doc you're referring to is the medic in your unit who's
Medic,
treating you in the
right,
first
yeah.
place. Okay, not the guy back in the hospital later.
No, not the doctor.
Okay, and then how long did you spend in that hospital, do you think?
I don't know. I was in and out of consciousness so
Mhm.
much.
But did they move you on pretty quickly to a hospital somewhere else?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they, in fact, I got kind of irate at one nurse. I said, when are you gonna do something with me? Your turn's coming, Mr. Pittman. And then they wheeled me out on the helicopter pad, and then I passed out then.
Mhm.
But I woke up it was either the 9th or the 24th.
Right.
Back.
Okay.
And they had a neurosurgeon right there. And he did the operation on my back, fused the vertebrae in my
Mhm.
back. And got me, so I didn't have to come to the States to get that operation.
Mm-hmm.
They did it right there.
Okay.
Then after that, it was, came down with Japan, and then the States.
And did you go to a military hospital in the States?
Oh, a bunch of them.
Okay.
Fort Riley, Kansas, Scott Air Base, Illinois. I wound up in Fitzsimmons Army Hospital in Denver. That's where I had my physical training,
Mm-hmm.
braces and crutches.
of that. Okay. Now, while you were in any of these places, did any of your family come out to see you, or?
No, I got transferred to Hines VA Hospital in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
That was after about 3-4 months. They were able to come out and see me then,
Mm-hmm.
but not when I was in the Army hospitals.
Right. Okay. Now, once you've recovered from all of that, or at least are back together as far as they're going to get you, you're discharged from the military, and now what happens to you?
Well, you get the boot.
Yep.
Yeah, you get the boot. You're a civilian again. Here's your monthly checks, and go start your life over.
All right. Now, this tape is about up, so I'm going to pause. All right. Now, we've gotten in your story to the point where you've come back home from Vietnam. You've been discharged, so you're out of the service. You're on your own. Now you're on disability from military. They are sending you the check every month or whatever.
Yeah.
But now, what do you do with yourself?
Well, luckily I worked for a company that wanted to hire me back. I was a machinist before I went in,
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't let me work on the doctors, wouldn't let me work on the machines. So they created a job as a draftsman, which I knew real well. So they took me back to work as a draftsman.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked at that for another 4 years before I finally quit.
Mm-hmm.
Bought this property up here, got custody of my son, and told the city that they can have it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we moved up here.
Okay. And basically, do you have any farmland here, or is this just the lot that we're on, or?
Oh no, I had 25 acres of Christmas trees.
Mm-hmm.
And then that top field up there was plantable, 10 acres of corn, alfalfa, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a deal with a few of the farmers around here about leasing the land. And that's been pretty profitable for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, just through living up here, just taking chances here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worked out real well.
Okay. How good has the VA support for you been?
Great,
Okay.
great.
I mean, do you use the hospital in Battle Creek, or?
Well, most of the time I'll go out to Milwaukee. They've got a spinal cord injury center
Mm-hmm.
out there. And they just treat me like, nobody better.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few problems with Battle Creek and Ann Arbor, Allen Park. The ones here in Michigan, they don't come close to
Mm-hmm.
what Milwaukee offers.
So how did you wind up finding the one in Milwaukee?
Other guys talking,
Mm-hmm.
they would say, "You been to Milwaukee?" And I said, "No, go out there."
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started going out there, and what a difference it makes. They treat you like you're human.
Mm-hmm.
You got a disability, and they'll treat you that way. So I love it.
And are you involved with veterans groups or organizations?
Damn near every one of them.
All right.
So I've had my turn of commanders and vice commanders, and right now I'm at a point where I'm kind of burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it for so long.
So you held those positions yourself?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Done that sort of thing. Now, how did they accept you right away? I mean,
It took me about 2 years to get accepted here in the community. They were very skeptical about a city slicker from Detroit moving up here to country, no relations, no nothing. Who in the hell are you, mister?
So it wasn't that you were injured in Vietnam. It wasn't that you went to Vietnam rather than World War II. It was just you were an outsider.
Yeah.
Okay. So why did you pick this place anyway?
You wanna hear they didn't have any blacks.
Okay.
Cause they were having that busing movement down Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Busing kids from the suburbs out back down Detroit. And in the same way with
Mm-hmm.
black kids out to the suburbs. I said, nah, that ain't gonna happen with my kid. So I found this community here and there were no blacks in it at all. So, yeah, that was it. I found the property here and bought it, and then I got the home grant for a wheelchair home.
Mm-hmm.
I used that to build the place. So here I am.
Mm-hmm. All right. You know, I mean, it's let's see. I guess now is to look back on the time that you spent in the service. I mean, obviously, it totally changed your life in the sense that you couldn't do a lot of things you could before. Did you think you took anything positive out of it? Were there good things about having been in the Army?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, aside from that, they'll pay for this, but well,
If you can't do something, stop and think of a way to do it.
mm-hmm.
That's what it taught me.
Okay. Well, that's got to have come in handy since then.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, I'll believe it.
I've been hunting up Montana, up in the Yukon, built a cabin up in the Yukon. You know, it's just, if you put yourself towards it,
Mm-hmm.
you'll figure out a way to do it. And that's what it's taught me.
Okay, well, I tell you, it makes for a good story, so I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to share it with me today.
Well, I appreciate you very much coming out and taking the time to interview me.